If you're here, you probably have questions. You might have some doubts. You might be in that uncomfortable in-between space where the faith you grew up with doesn't quite fit anymore. But you're not ready to walk away from Jesus either. That's exactly who the Rebuilding Faith online community is for. Members get a behind-the-scenes newsletter every Friday, monthly video calls where we actually talk through this stuff together, guided book studies, and a community of people who are on the same road you are. You're not going to find a lot of easy answers there, but you will find honest conversations and people who aren't going to flinch when you ask the hard questions. You can join for as little as $10 a month. The link is in the show notes. Welcome to another episode of Cabernet and Pray, where we sip the wine and we stir the faith. Today we have got someone with almost the same last name as me. And on top of that, we've got the same publisher. So this is someone I have interacted with offline a number of times. We've never formally had a conversation, and we completed that circle today. This is Chad Jarnagin, not spelled the way my name is, but very similar. He is a priest, a researcher, and an author. He's the founding vicar of Luminous Parish in Franklin, Tennessee. He served on the President's Advisory Council on faith-based and neighborhood partnerships from 2001 to 2009. And his latest book, which we talk about on this episode, is called The Congruent Life, Liberation, Healing, and the Future of Faith. This is someone who is another example of a person in the church currently living it out well, navigating this tension well, figuring out how to make room for the questions and room for the doubt. And I think this example will be an encouragement for you today.
I've never shared this with anybody publicly.
If this was SportsCenter, that would be like such a hot take. Skip Bayless would have no idea. Stephen A. Smith would have no idea what to say if you drop that down. That is so good.
The joke I always say is like, how'd you learn so much? You gotta drink a lot.
The power of food and beverage to lubricate an environment.
Resistance to change is hurting the church.
I'm not in the camp that God has a penis or a vagina or a body at all. I'm in the camp that God is a universal spirit.
This is the strangest podcast that I have been on. I don't even know what to do.
I'm kind of geeked up about this wine.
So this is my second glass, and it delivers a little more of a punch than I expected. So if I get a little loopy, it's your fault. You told me to drink on the show.
I will also say as a confession, I am a lightweight. So I've had like 3 sips of this wine and I'm already feeling it. So this is fun.
You've uncovered the mystery. You've exposed the formula.
You've just duct taped together a number of things that aren't normally hanging out together, and I'm here for it.
We're going to sit down at a table, we're going to have a glass of wine and some food, and we're going to talk about the beauty of Jesus.
Thanks for what you're doing with this podcast and for the creative way you're doing it and the beautiful, positive spirit in which you're doing it.
I really appreciate this venue, what you're doing. It is fun, and yet you dig into the deep stuff.
I've heard about your podcast for a long time, and I love that you're a pastor and that you explore the world of faith through wine. That's very unique.
I never thought of church history in terms of wine drinkers. I love this question. Really got my mind rolling.
You had me with herbaceous notes, I want you to know. I'm ready to just stay here and live in the wine tour.
I will never forget the first time I bought a bottle of wine by myself, which was yesterday.
If you're familiar with drunk history, I thought it's like drunk theology. So I
got a little spicy there. It's the peach wine.
Apparently the wine is, here we are. Queer we are. Beer we are. No, it's wine, Jeremy.
By the way, drinking this Pinot Grigio at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is making me even more direct in my communication than I normally would be.
I know why you have your guests drink wine. It makes sense now. Yeah, I get it. A little bit of liquid courage to really unleash the beast.
I think you've got a good podcast. So throw in the wine bit in there. That's nice, doesn't it? Cabernet and Pray, yeah.
Well, our last names sound the same, but as far as we know, we're not actually related. Welcome to the podcast, Chad.
Hey, thanks, man. Looking forward to it.
I mean, it feels right. We're both in the same line of work. We have very similar names, although if you're just listening to this, they're spelled differently and they're pronounced slightly differently. But This is the closest I've got to, I think, kin, so I'm going to take it.
That's awesome. Well, I think our publisher actually said we should do a podcast called Jarnagin and Jarnagin.
That's true. Yeah,
So-
we have the same publisher, so they did.
We'll see.
And I will tell you, I don't know if you had this, but I had a few things when we were editing and putting things together in the book where our publisher got me confused with you and was like, "Wait, was that Chad or was that you that I was talking to?" So,
Yep, here we are.
We're going full circle now. We're completing the loop. This just feels right. It's
right.
great to have you on the
Yeah,
episode
man.
today. Before we dive into your book, let's talk about what we're drinking. I'm stoked for what I've got in my bottle. This is the 2010 Chateau Olivier Ground Cru Class A Bordeaux blend.
Goodness.
And I have had this one for a while, and I felt like today felt right to bring this out. So here's a fun story about this. The winery hired a professor to do a soil survey in 2002. And he's got a funky French name, but they refer to this guy as the Pope of Bordeaux. So this guy's legendary. And he discovers this plot of land on the chateau that was not being used for vines. It had pine trees and oak trees on it. And he does a soil survey and he finds out this is the perfect soil to grow this Cabernet on. So they pivot, they take the trees out, they start planting these vines. And so the bottle I'm enjoying today is the second year of fruit from that vineyard, which I just think is a cool story. And as any good Bordeaux blend, this thing is dark and can't see through it. But Chad, it is so incredible.
That sounds amazing. Looks amazing. What a fun story too. That's special.
Oh, I love that they hired this guy. And so because it's of the age, so this is 16 years old, some of the tannins have softened, which a lot of people have a hard time with these. So I'm getting plum and graphite, black pepper, cedar notes, just absolute delight. So I'm already in a good mood, and we haven't even started talking about some fun things with someone that I know I'm going to like, but that's where I'm at. I'm feeling good today. So
Wow.
Chad, what have you got?
Well, that's a lot to live up to, and there's no chance. But this is Three Finger Jack. This is it's a cab. That's really all I kind of live in the red world. California, 2022, I believe. It's one of my go-to table wines, and it's really fun because you have to let it breathe, and because it's kind of bossy, and it's got a great jammy tobacco, kind of plummy kind of thing. There's some coffee kind of notes there. It's so good, and it pairs well with pasta and red sauce, stuff like that. My wife's Italian, so we kind of have a quota of red wine, I would say. But this one's one of our go-tos. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, I feel like if you married an Italian, you gotta be able to hang with the wine game.
Absolutely. And I'm a whiskey and wine guy.
Ooh, okay.
Not together, but yes, it's awesome.
Very nice. We have a whiskey and wine trip coming up in September. Just shout out to all of our listeners. If that's interesting to you, you can find out more on the website. But Chad brought it up, so I felt like I had to connect. We actually, if you want to go in Oregon, see people who make the whiskey, who make the wine, and talk to them while you enjoy the fruit of their labors, we have a trip for that. It's a guy's trip. And
it's a blast.
Yeah, we did it last year. It was super cool. And we're doing another one back by popular demand. I'm curious, do you use wine in communion?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
Is there a certain type of wine you use? How does that go?
Port.
Oh.
Typically. And we spare no expense with Taylor Port, which is a joke. It's just they come in these handles. They're easy to get. We always have 2 bottles at the same time. You never have to worry about running out of wine just because of the quantity that they give us. But it's great. And you do that when you cut it with water, which is a part of our communion kind of ritual. It takes the edge off a little bit. And there's something about when you have port with any form of bread, it just kind of gets you a little bit. And so I like when new people come up to receive Eucharist, I can kind of tell if they have been in this type of environment before, or if this is something they're used to, or if they're a former like evangelical kind of coming and trying the liturgical smells and bells. And you can tell by their face when they've tasted the wine, especially if they do the common cup straight, and you can just kind of see them just kind of do a, and
Whoa.
it's so great. Yeah, it reminds me. I saw a guy a couple weeks ago who had he told on himself with all, and he kind of had a Seinfeld Kramer kind of vibe, and he kind of had that kind of feel. And I
totally picture what you're saying.
Right. And so imagine giving that and seeing that happen and being a Seinfeld guy and then being like trying to hold it together at the same time. That was pretty funny.
Fun fact. I don't know if I've ever shared this story on the pod. My first exposure to wine in my life was at the Eucharist at a Catholic church. I didn't know it was wine. That's how Protestant I was. And so, the priest, I went there with a friend for a weekend, and the priest holds the glass, and I take a big swig of it, having no clue what I'm doing. I'm a little kid in elementary school, and, definitely had that like, oh, what is that?
It burns.
Yeah. And then my friend's like, you took a sip of it? And I was like, I've never done it like this before,
That's so good.
Oh,
that's the best.
That's great.
Yeah. That was a story of mine too. Same kind of deal. And I was like, whoa, what was that? And so stayed with me and got into me.
Do you finish the wine personally at the end of the Eucharist or no?
I typically don't. We have, if there's a bunch of us serving that day, whether it's a deacon or another priest, I kind of let them do it. And if there's any left over, I might. But one of the fun things we love to do is whoever is helping to clean up everything, whether it's one of the clergy or sometimes it's my children. I have 2 older teenagers that kind of help do all the, sometimes we are to serve Eucharist to creation if there's leftover, right? If there is a lot left over, we save some of it. It's consecrated so that we can serve it throughout the week different ways, or we just take it outside and we give it back to nature, And so same thing with the wine and the juice. And it's just a beautiful kind of ritual that we do.
Because is it in some traditions that it has to be consumed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
well,
you can't
in some regards, you can store some of it if you're going to use it within a certain amount of time, but typically if there's just a bit left, just finish it off. I will say this is funny. At my diaconate ordination, I believe, when I was ordained a deacon, the priests and the bishops had me and the 2 other ordinands that were being ordained at the same time. They made us consume all of it together, and they waited the entire, there was a block of time. There was so much bread left over and so much wine, and we just kind of looked at each other and it's like, I think they're punking us. And we just kind of looked over at them, and they're like, tell me that Anglicans don't have a sense of humor. Dude, they were having a blast watching us just kind of finish it all off. So we all kind of just like, this seems cruel. And it was so funny. And I don't tend to do that kind of stuff, but that's a funny little side story.
So you guys did finish it all?
We did. We were so proud of ourselves, but I'm like, my gosh, I want to save some room for like dinner later, but I'm so full from Jesus. So
I'm so full from Jesus.
Oh man.
Just imagining having to I gotta eat another loaf and then drink another cup. I mean,
we just kept looking at the plate going, I was like, is
but...
this multiplying again? What is happening?
Yeah, that story takes on a whole new connotation for you. You have PTSD every time you read it. Too much bread.
This isn't as fun as everybody thinks it is.
Oh, stop feeding so many people, Jesus. We're done. That's it. Oh, Chad, that's amazing. That's a great story. Okay, let's try to transition out of that because I feel like we could just hear some of your stories today. I love to give people who are listening a chance to get your story, kind of a perspective before we get into some of the specifics in your book. And the way I like to do it is focus on the last 10 years. And in particular, one of the things that we talk a lot about on this podcast is that we're all in process. We are growing, we are changing, we're allowing the Spirit to lead us wherever that may go. And I think it's helpful for people to see what that actually looks like in real people's lives. So for you, how would you say your faith has changed in the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years, well, I've been a priest for a little over 10 years. And so I've been doing this type of work that long. And the previous 10 years probably formed and led up to that 10 years. But this has been a strange time. And I'm sure you have people on all the time that talk about the same thing, especially if they have any kind of ministry connection, that you have to navigate the last 10 years with all of these ridiculous hurdles from culture and politics and media and now propaganda and all these, all of this craziness. And so for me, it's driven me into a deeper type 5-ness, to just drink in, read, expand knowledge, and then figure out how to teach that knowledge back to people. So understanding who I have in front of me or around me contextually is really important. And so I understand that a lot of our people are in process of deconstructing or having had, or we have a dozen former pastors in our church just as parishioners, and a ton of therapists and musicians and authors and that kind of weird stuff. I mean, we're a tiny church, 160 maybe. And so it's extraordinary to see that. So to know who we are, to know who we have, to know who the eyes that I'm looking into has helped me to not get overwhelmed and constant outrage of every ridiculous microphone that is turned on and facing in our direction. It's just helped me to kind of see people and lean into life together. And context is king, and that's been the last 10 years of just living and loving on the people that are around me, giving myself permission to not have all the answers, to listen and learn, and kind of for the first time in my life, I think, if I'm honest, enjoy some obscurity, just to be a dad or a friend or a husband or a lover of baseball and music and art. And so that's the last 10 years. It feels like I've really been living the life internally and externally as a resistance to the chaos here in the United States, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
10 years of it, man. Like, we're all kind of can trace what it felt like before times.
Yeah, that question right now, the way it hits, 3 years from now, hopefully that question feels different, when people are thinking about that. But, to have literally a decade of this has defined it. And for those of us who have tried to navigate any sense of ministry within these cultural waters, it is very challenging.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've had people say, this is a challenge, yes, and I'm also going to push back now. Yeah. I think that's part of the job. And regardless, if there was another tyrant in D.C. kind of leading the charge, we would kind of be pushing back against the things that feel like trespassing, or watching our marginalized brothers and sisters just fight for their life. And that's something for us to now, we're not sitting back on the sidelines. The fruit of the chaos has led us to participate and to protest and to stand up and find a voice. I think that's kind of the undercurrent of the congruent life, just trying to figure out how to bring this forward and normalize the resistance, if that makes sense.
And your book does such a good job connecting the outward part of us, the inward part of us. How do we think these things through? And so I want to read through a number of different quotes that stood out to me. And I love doing this with authors. especially when I know as I'm reading your book, I'm going to get a chance to sit down with you and we can, talk more in depth about these ideas. But you had a number of things, and this was a book that was like surprisingly easy to read because it just felt like it was like doing soul work, but not like laboriously. It wasn't like, okay, yeah, I should. It's just like, oh yes. Like I kept like agreeing with you, like, yes, like let's do that. You have this line. What if the spiritual exhaustion we feel isn't because we've failed our faith, but because our faith has failed to make space for our full humanity? I love that image of, and this is what I talk about in my book a lot, of these ideas that we thought we lost, we broke, everything didn't work out. And then you go, oh, actually something beautiful is happening. What do you mean there by our full humanity? How do you see that?
That is obviously, for me, it's obvious that we have to be holistic. So our full humanity is not just what we say and not what we wear and what we do, but it's what we leave unsaid. It's what we leave hidden. And the fullness of who our humanity is our values, our beliefs, our convictions, our joys, our pain, our lament. And we have to give it space to be honest rather than hide it and cloak it in some kind of religious bullshit. There's this opportunity of fullness if we just drink it in and allow ourselves to be honest with ourselves, first of all, and with our Creator, and then with one another. And I think that that's hopefully what I was getting at.
What do you think it looks like when someone is doing that well, when they're embracing their full humanity? What do you see in that person?
Oh, man, I have seen that. And maybe in times I wouldn't have known that was what I was seeing. It's someone who is offering, and this is therapy talk, but I love that we've normalized some of this. Offering people generous assumptions is a beautiful art. And when I see people do that, I know that they're doing the hard work. They're doing the inner work. They're doing the heavy lifting that nobody else can see. And I think the performative aspect of especially American Christianity can be so much easier it's the veneer that we can put on and then take off when nobody else is looking. But the realness is when you're kind of pressed in from every side and life is coming at you heavy and hard, then seeing what you're made of by how kind you are or by how hospitable you are. And sometimes that non-anxious presence is revealed in the moment of crisis or heaviness, and everything around can just be chaos. And then for a moment you see someone just slow down and they aren't looking over your shoulder. They're looking directly at you. You have their attention. You are their attention. And those are beautiful ways of seeing how that's playing out in real time. I see that in everyday people, but I also see that with people within my parish and other authors and writers and everybody that I encounter. I also see that not playing out, and it's pretty obvious. And that's not, it has to be beyond personality. Some people, especially as prevalent as ADHD is in adults, we have to give each other maybe that generous assumption back when we aren't seeing it play out, and then it maybe slows us down a little bit to offer a little bit more grace. Yeah.
It is interesting. It's cliche, but is this going to make you bitter or is this going to make you better? And I remember that kind of an idea, even going through some of my journey of like, okay, you get to choose here. Like something happened, you're going through something hard, but what is the outpouring? Like what is it producing in me? And I just remember that was like really an invitation for me to lean into like, okay, God, whatever you want to do in me here, I want to sit in it. I want to be there for it. I want to, be ready for it, because I don't want it to be said of me that, hey, X, Y, and Z happened, and then look how bitter he is now. And we've all seen that person that you're like, well, it's understandable, but I'm not drawn to that person now. And, and it's like, it's kind of like you meet that person with a sadness versus the person who may have gone through something horrific. And then everything you're describing, you're like, I am so drawn to you. And the way that you are embodying, to use your phrase, your full humanity, but also just the way that you're embodying the Spirit, I think is beautiful. It's an invitation for all of us. I know a lot of people listening to this probably have a deconstruction, either they lean that way or they have, something in their story that they're open to that. And this is always the invitation for us is when you go through that, are you allowing God to produce, the fruit of the Spirit in the midst of that? Or does it create these really nasty negative versions of us because we didn't ever lean into that moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that's so good and so wise, and it's something that we have to slow ourselves down to experience, which is easier said than done these days.
But I think too, when you see someone do it well, it's like, I can think of people in my life that I'm like, I want to be like this person,
Yep.
And it's like, however you have figured this out, like I want to like absorb some of that. And so I think we have to have those good examples ready.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. You had an idea in your book that I talk a lot about this because I think this is something that so many people are feeling. I do not think we are talking about it enough. So I was so grateful that you dove into this. You say this line, it's disorienting when the very people who taught you to follow Jesus no longer recognize that same Jesus in your faith. And I mean, like, I was like an immediate highlight. So I'm like, this is it. And you say it so succinctly, so powerfully. There are so many people that I know you're talking to. I'm talking to them every single week. And there's a confusion. The people who introduced me to this Jesus now are they cannot recognize anything that this Jesus has led me to do. Mm-hmm. And then there's this confusion of, did I get something wrong? Did they get something wrong? Is Jesus both of these things? It's like, it's all these, like, what is it? Talk to us about this, because this is such a big deal for people right now.
I don't think that we can have a conversation about this without going ahead and calling out what has seemingly become of some of these people that we have in mind. And it has to be, I love Brian Zahn said something about, there's never been a time where God wasn't like Jesus and Jesus wasn't like God. There's never been a time that Jesus has always been like God and God has always been like Jesus. When I see that, I have to think, so if someone stands at a podium with a gold cross on their chest and spouts off incredibly non-Christ-like rhetoric against a people group or in support of some ridiculously anti-Christ legislation, how recent is this? We see this on a daily basis intentionally to try to normalize Christian nationalism. And I will get in trouble, and I have gotten in trouble in saying this. I said this in the book. If we're honest about Christian nationalism, we're talking about white nationalism, cloaked in Christianity that has nothing to do with Jesus. It is a different thing altogether. And when you have a room full of people that maybe we once knew and we looked to as, wow, I read their books, I heard their talk at a leadership summit, or I saw like whatever, and we're seeing two different types of Jesus. But one is of empire, and one is this meek, donkey-riding Messiah, right? I mean, we're in Holy Week now as we're doing this, and we come through Palm Sunday with, it seems like this. I don't know if you've thought about this. We haven't talked previously about this, but Palm Sunday gave us two distinct pictures of a king, right? With one side of Jerusalem had this armory parade, military parade of might and intimidation, and Christ is on the other side of town coming in, having palm branches thrown and waved, singing hosannas, which is save us. He thought that he was going to offer a revolution and take care of them and stand up for them and be a king that would actually smite and combat the empire. And Jesus is saying, that's not it. That's not my kingdom. And we see that kind of unravel. And so now this humility of a donkey riding Messiah and this emperor heavy armored horse kind of vibe, that's what these folks that we have in our hearts, in our heads, they're bowing to this Caesar and not this humble way of Jesus that offers a different way forward. That's the only thing that I can kind of call out. And that's definitely in the undercurrent of everything that I was writing about. And I was trying to make it tempered and accessible for us all to kind of draw our own conclusions and to be mindful of that reality. I've actually had a couple of people talk about that specifically, that said that it moved them to tears because of parents or relationships that have fractured over the last decade. And it's extraordinary that we're having to sit here and heal from that kind of pain,
Well, and to use your, Palm Sunday illustration, you're watching Jesus walk in on the donkey, and you're looking around for all your loved ones who introduced you to Jesus, and instead you realize they went to the other end of town.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
And pastorally, my heart breaks for how many people are looking around in confusion, going, "Here he is! Like, you introduced me to him, and here he comes! Like he's right here! It's like he's doing what you said he was going to do."
Yeah.
And then you look around to let's celebrate this, and they're not there. And so then you have that element of the disappointment of that, the shock of that. Then you have, the groups later for dinner meet up, and they tell you, why were you not with us? And you're like, 'cause I was at the Jesus end of the procession, the donkey side, right? And it's like, no, you missed it. He rode in, the king's here. And it's like, no. And, it's like almost every week I feel like I hear a new story of someone with a family member, a parent, and they're like, it's just this deep grief that people are carrying. Pastorally, how have you found, how do you help people? How have you found ways to encourage people who are just confused at which end of town their loved ones are?
Yeah. These are really hard times to navigate those realities. I've experienced that personally as well, so I have a deeper empathy, and I don't think that that's by accident. I think that we can look at each other and say, I see you, and I do get it. And it is extraordinary. I give people the space to grieve that. And I think we can't just move on and just think these people that I grew up with my entire life are essentially, I've heard people use the word disowned. They have been disowned. And of course that's been a normalcy from people coming out on their sexuality or something like that in a more strictly conservative or fundamentalist church. But also people who say, well, if you didn't vote for Trump, we have nothing in common. And I would think reasonable people would say, well, that's absurd. That's ridiculous. And yet I have heard those stories more than a half a dozen times of real people. So you have to just give people the space to grieve that, and also say, hey, by the way, you're not alone. There is an entire group of people who will resonate and welcome you in as family. And so at Thanksgiving and at Christmas and at Easter, we're having families and people just make new families. They're holding each other up. They're creating new memories. And I hope that at some point when sobriety comes back around from whatever this bewitching is, we would be able to look back on that and even grieve that, even grieve the Kool-Aid drinking, the whatever propaganda that we have poisoned ourselves with, or and some of our loved ones have done. So yeah, we just have to give each other space and offer that to say, you're not alone. And to normalize that is a really helpful thing. I've seen that. I've seen tears quickly just come up in people's eyes when you say things like that, because you're giving them permission to be like, I know I'm not crazy. I know I'm not crazy. And then when they hear certain things within a message or homily or in the prayers of the people even that we offer, you just kind of see it even there break down walls, and they're kind of like their shoulders just kind of like relax little by little in the 15 minutes of the homily. And it's because we're all looking for that permission to be like, I'm trying to live into my values and into this whole Jesus thing. And so that's the incongruence that we have to live with is baked with grief and these hard stories. And so we just have to give each other space for it to detangle. But being with each other, finding your people is a really beautiful thing in the middle of the chaos.
Yeah, sharing the grief with others is profound. And that is what happens in a lot of these spaces. And watching the lights come back on in someone's eyes when they find, oh, you can relate with this. You have this pain too. This grief. And, it's so interesting also for those of us in the roles of, trying to be the communicators of a better way forward. Like I was in a meeting not too long ago with about 7 couples of a church that I regularly teach at, and they didn't like what we were addressing. And they were much more in the Christian nationalism. They said they wanted us to be more like Charlie Kirk and Franklin Graham, and those were the examples they held up. So we sit down with them and, we're listening to them. We're trying to talk through, why are we not being that kind of a church? Why are we being this kind of a church? And as I'm listening, to different things, one of them who is, just dogmatic in this is the only way it should be done, and you guys are not doing it the right way. And then talks about she was, I think in her late 70s, talks about her family has cut her off. And she was just saying, I cannot believe anybody would ever. And, it wasn't the right setting in that moment, but had I been one-on-one with her, I would have said, what do you think about your posture right now is causing your family members to tell you that they can't be in relationship with you? Like, what do you think maybe you are projecting onto them that they're having to create a boundary with you, and you don't understand the boundary and you're hurt by the boundary, but what led to the boundary? And it's like, I don't know if you I feel like we're like trying to dissect an onion, and it's like, which layer do we even get to right? It's like, then there's that layer and that layer and that layer and this whole thing. And, it's like, I also have a heart for these people who are confused, and they have drank the Kool-Aid, and they're, I don't understand why my kids won't talk to me. It's like, I can try to help you understand it, but if you're not in a place where you're really wanting to, it's not going to make any sense to you.
Yeah. These are so strange times to walk through. And I've asked my mother, who's a really wonderful person and much older, and I've asked her, what have you ever experienced that's anything like this? And she goes, I haven't. She's 70 something years old, 79. She's not experienced this either. And I've looked back, and she's experienced a lot of life. in a lot of really strange times as a world and as a country. And so I think we have to maybe just realize that this is so extraordinary right now that, not to be an alarmist, I think all you have to do is just kind of just wake up in the morning to just be aware that there's smoke, there's fire, and you can ignore it and kind of pretend that, or just think that it's just going to go away. But that's not really happening. We have to do some work. It takes some effort for us to find our people and also care for those that we love, and maybe even find that place. I wish somebody had a template. Maybe somebody does. Maybe a good therapist who's out here on the interwebs would say, here's the 3 things that you don't do when you're with your family these days who are on the opposite side of reality. But it's more about, can we just talk about baseball? Can we talk about the food that we've worked on? Can we talk about this recipe or your garden? Things like that. And but I still think that that's only going to be short-lived because it's surface. You're just staying out of these things rather than what is it fundamentally that we get so fractured over? Because I've never once ever bought a flag for a president. I've never bought swag from anyone who I was excited about and voted for. And so it's a cult-ish and actual cult too that we have seen kind of fracture our families and our communities and in our churches. I think we've all kind of experienced that in a different way. We've probably always been more of a left-leaning place, but we also welcomed right-leaning. I don't think that, the far right would never be a part of our parish. And I think the far, far left would have more difficult time as well because we're not radical enough in their eyes. And we're most certainly way too hospitable and open and affirming for people on the far right. But it's kind of like, it's not an experiment. I think we're just kind of seeing it play out in real time, but also having these conversations on the daily, it feels like. And it's sometimes I just leave those conversations wanting to be more hopeful. And I try to offer these little bite-sized moments of, like, my priestly duties would say, like, look, you just care for yourself and know when to say no and give yourself that permission, but also try to stay soft. Try to stay soft. And sometimes the rigidity is a defense that helps us to kind of like, no, I got to just put up this wall. And I think we do have to do that on occasion. I long for the days where everybody begins to soften and melt again.
I think the hard part about what you're saying, and it's exactly what I've seen as well. You start to realize we can't talk about this, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about this. So let's talk about baseball. Let's talk about the weather. Let's talk about, and then you realize these people who you have deep, deep ties with, you only have service level conversations with. And there's something that like is broken about that, right? Of we have so much relational connection, and yet none of that is displayed in the way we interact together anymore. And so, I think I've heard from parents that's like, well, we just won't talk about those things. And it's like, well, that's problem solved. Like, let's just don't talk about politics. Let's just don't talk about right. And it's not problem solved because I can't talk to you about my views of all the things that matter to me now, and that's what what the solution becomes. And it's so hard for that to be the solution of, and so I think people are like going, are there spaces where you can talk about it, where you can be real, where you can say, here's where I'm at. Where are you at? How do we, And I love that you are a church that's trying to create that space. That's trying to say, look, if you're on the extremes, you may not love it, but if you're not on the extremes, you might be able to find some nuanced conversation here.
That might be why we're only 160 people.
You know what? And maybe
okay
it's the most faithful 160 you could ever have.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's really wild because I think that's our ambition is not to be a mega liturgical space. I don't even think that is allowed. But yeah, there's something really beautiful about offering that and seeing it and then walking with people together to where you start going, oh, that's a different take, because it was civil, with like offered with respect. And I think most of us, what we have to just get to the deduction is when we are disrespectful towards someone or dehumanizing of a human or being dehumanized and disrespected, that's when every single human shuts down or we get into combat mode. And PBS has a beautiful thing out that I just started watching, and it's going to be something that I'm going to have to take and listen to and watch. And it is something that I think would be really helpful for the church today. I can't even remember the title of the segment, but it has to do with the propaganda and the intentionality of our outrage. It is being weaponized on purpose. And I think if we just kind of see through some of that, it gives us some sanity and sobriety in the middle of the chaos that we are experiencing. And then also to help us to go, man, I don't have all the answers, but I can see what's happening. I'm not bewitched by whatever this spell is. And man, we just got to keep trying to hold on to our humanity in the middle of all of it.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, you write this. When the cultural air is thick with suspicion and distortion, the pursuit of truth becomes a sacred act. Tell us about that.
Yes, indeed. I think you can put that in almost any context. If you're talking about, the scriptures and kind of how we translate a story or a parable, or even how we correlate what Paul is doing in light of what he heard about Jesus. But we can also see that in the same context that we were just talking about in our political and cultural context. We have to find ways of listening and learning, because we can take in all the information there is, but if that doesn't lead us to transformation, then we're missing an opportunity. And that is with everything. Here's a good story. Maybe I hope that it connects with this, but I'm a baseball guy. I grew up, my baseball family. I had my dad, my uncle, my nephew, and another cousin who played in the majors. And I loved the sport, and I coached it for about 15 seasons. And I thought I knew all the things that I could offer to young boys growing up learning the sport. And then I step back and I say, I want my youngest son to have a different experience. And he has now had a couple of seasons with new coaches that weren't me. And I will always be Coach Dad. I will always kind of be that. But watching him learn from new people, saying the same things new ways, doing the same drills a different way, using different angles and different aspects of what they're trying to get them to move their bodies in a certain way. It's been a game changer. Literally watching my son live and learn with new people, new voices, new mechanisms. And so seeing that and being willing to step back and let that play out. I wonder if there's other ways that we can do that. I think I would love to see more women in ministry. I would love to see more women. And I think we are seeing that, and we're seeing that in the publishing world too. More voices moving towards the front, and some of the other voices and the older voices kind of moving to the side or to the back. And sometimes the industries do that to you and it doesn't feel great. But when we have the sensibility and the awareness where we're giving the pulpit and the microphone to the next young woman or the next young man, it changes things, and it starts to cultivate this openness that I think is connected to your question. Is just that how do we remain and find new ways of getting to the truth and getting to what the reality is versus standing around in the same system that just only protects the powerful and marginalizes the softer. And gosh, we have to move forward in all of that. I think that's what I'm trying to get at.
I already knew you were a godly man, but when you have used baseball as strong of an illustration as you just have, now I know it for sure. I'm a huge baseball nut.
Nice.
Like very huge. What's your team?
Well, I also know something about suffering. As soon as I say my team, I'm a Cincinnati Reds fan.
Oh yeah.
So yes, but I love the sport so much to where I have a lot of teams that I pull for. And if you're a real baseball fan, you also have teams that you loathe and that I want to see them go 0 for 162. And that's not happening already, but yeah, I love it. It's such a fun sport.
Oh, yes. Okay, you have this idea that I thought was so cool, and I think this is a thread we've already been talking about in this conversation. You write, because God is not behind us urging shame, but ahead of us whispering courage. To move always forward is not to rush or strive, it is to keep participating in our becoming. Mm-hmm. And I love the way you worded that, because I think we often, it's very American to go, okay, here's the 5 things you got to do and do these right and, be more disciplined. And I love the idea of participating in our becoming. Like Jesus is already doing this. He's inviting us forward. We just participate in it and then we become that person. What does that look like to you? How have you seen that?
Well, it's practice. We're wired the way we are for a reason. It's in us. We have been created certain ways to have a love of baseball, a love of wine, a love of whatever your Netflix show is, and we have to just learn to be still enough to do the inner work. Just because you were maybe a mathlete at a young age, and then you grow up and maybe math is easy to you, but you don't have a love of it, that's okay. Like, learn to accept what gives you life and what drains you. And I'm a big fan of the personality assessments, especially the Enneagram, because it helps give us a more robust and a more fuller picture of what makes us tick. And instead of trying to do something that we have no desire to do, or it just drains us at the thought of having to make that spreadsheet. And there's something about becoming that gives us life. And I think we just have to continue to practice things to figure out what that is. Sometimes it's process of elimination, but giving ourselves that permission to say, that's not really, I don't really appreciate it. One of the things for me is like, I love reading. I truly do. But when someone makes such an amazing cinematic saga to film, like The Lord of the Rings or even Harry Potter, I love those. And I've read most of the books. And I have to see the life of these characters come into the visual. And my imagination, which I think is a holy thing, our sacred imagination is such a beautiful thing. But sometimes we have to give our permission to say, hey, just because I love to read doesn't mean that I don't like that film better than I like that book. And as silly as that sounds, there's something about just giving ourselves permission just to learn something new that gives us just a desire to live it even more boldly. So,
okay, I got to press this one. What book or what movie would you say is better than the book version?
Ooh.
Give us a tangible.
Ooh, that's tough.
Because I'm gonna say I can't even think of one. I mean, maybe I have one. I couldn't think of one off the top of my head because I am the snob the other way that's like, oh my gosh, this movie had to cut out so many things. Like, I recently read The Hunger Games.
Oh, yeah.
The 5 books with my daughter. She was really into this, and she's like, Dad, let's read these together. So we did. And they were good. I enjoyed them. I think they're written for a teen audience, but I was like, yeah, there's a lot there. Like, it was really good. Then we watched the first movie, and I was such a snob about it because I'm like, ugh. Like, while we're watching, I'm like, they skipped this whole backstory. You know, like,
that's
what you have to do and all this. And so, again, I'm the guy, I think I'm probably too far on the other end. So redeem me. What's a movie that smokes the book?
Man, okay, so from what I have experienced, the only one that I can think of, and my wife would vehemently just disagree with me on this, is Dune. And the idea that these characters are extraordinary. I love the music. I love the immersive reality of it. Like, you can almost taste and smell the spice and the sand and the heat. And I just think that they killed it. And then there's things that they left out that I wish they wouldn't have, and characters that I don't like the evolution of. But man, I've enjoyed those films probably more than the books.
Wow.
So that's the only thing that comes to my mind.
You know, I appreciate that. I adamantly agree with your wife on this one. I hated the Dune movies.
Oh, did you?
To the point where I don't even think I'll see the next one because I'm like, I'm over it. I don't like. You just lost me. Like,
that's fair.
Because I feel like and again, I think part of it is the medium. You have to move so fast just for the sake of time. So it's like, you know, I love the backstory. I love all the nuance of it. And, you know, I think the equivalent would be if you could take each book and make it a series, right? Where like each book had that space, maybe they could smoke it. But
that's fair. Yeah. And I'm fine to actually be on an island on this one.
All right, listeners, you have to decide for yourself where you land on this. All right, a little bit. Let's pivot a little bit. Let's talk about wine for a moment. And I want to ask you some questions I'd like to ask each of our guests. If I said, what was the best glass of wine you have ever had in your life? Is there a moment, a memory that comes to your mind? Is it a story? I'd love to hear a story. And I'd love to hear, was it because of what was in the bottle? Was it because of where you were? Was it because of who you were with? What makes that story pop into your mind when I say best glass of wine you've ever had in your life?
I have a couple of stories. So, and I'll make this as succinct as possible. When I first moved to Nashville, I didn't really know anyone. I've been here for 27 years, I think, 28 years. And when I first moved here, I just found friends who were connected in the music world because that's where I moved to town for. I know it's shocking. And I went over to one of my friend's apartments to celebrate her birthday. Her dad came in and bought all of this extraordinary wine that I had no idea what it was. I was so early on in my 20s that I didn't know what was what. And he gave me this glass, and I felt like I was drinking wood chips. It was so dry. All the moisture in my mouth just left immediately. And I was like, what is this? And I was trying to be a good friend. I literally was sitting here just going, oh my God, what can I do with this? And
where do I dump this?
So, yeah. And the thing is, he was a wonderful host, and he would kept just replenishing and refilling the wine. And he knew what he was doing. Like, he gave you like a proper pour so that you can smell and enjoy it. because I had no idea what we were having until the next year. I told my friend, hey, you remember that your birthday last year? And she said, oh my God, yes. How can I ever forget? My dad brought in a case of his favorite wine, which is extraordinary. And I was like, yeah, I would remember that. Do you know? And I asked her, what wine was that? Because at that point, I was still a novice, just trying to figure it out. She says, that was Opus 1. And I was like, are you kidding? And then this is a year removed. And I knew enough then to know, oh, what a schmuck I was. I had no
I missed
idea.
something there.
And so at that time, it was not my favorite, but I have had it since, and I could not believe my palate. It is still not my favorite wine. It's so strange. I love silver oak, and it's the cab. And I had an experience where I had a bottle of it with a couple of friends in San Francisco while I was touring. We had like a day off, and we had gone to a concert like that night. And oh no, this was Sacramento, because the concert was at this really cool venue in Sacramento. And I just had this beautiful glass. And at that time, I had done enough work to know I really like red wine, but my palate wasn't ready for Opus 1 back in that time. So I thought that was fun.
That's amazing. It is totally, very much an acquired taste. At like Christmas time, we'll give our kids, once they become 13, you get a little glass of wine at Christmas. It's kind of the way we like introduce them. And, the first year they're always like, this is the thing you talk about all the time, Dad. Like they're just kind of confused, And I'm like, we'll revisit it year after year, just a little bit. Like, you don't have to drink it, if you don't want it. And my 17-year-old's our oldest, and he's at the point now where he's like, okay, I'm starting to dial this in. And I'm like, dude, I was in my late 20s before I ever enjoyed a glass of wine, so you'll be way ahead of me. But
that's
I always
a fun
joke,
custom. I love that.
I do want to set it up where my daughter, who's 13, I want to set it up where, some boy is going to take her out to like a nice dinner, in her early 20s, and like try to wow her with some bottle of wine. She's going to be like, my dad's has, better stuff than this. And he's like, what? It's like, dude, come on.
Oh, that's a good strategy.
Try to
I
keep
like
up.
That. I might borrow that, but I'll have to flip it because I have all boys, and I'll be like, here's what you have to do.
Yeah. I love it. Good. All right. Which member of church history would you trust to pick out a bottle of wine for you? And who would you not trust, and why?
That's great, man. Well, strangely, I have a pretty quick answer of who I would want. I have to do more thinking about who not. Thomas Merton. If he wants to offer me, I'll probably take his recommendation, because he was probably moody enough to know like what it's going to feel like, what the temperature's like, where are you having this, what are you pairing it with, who are you with, what are these people, and so I would trust Thomas Merton, and robe and all, like, for sure. And what interesting to me is like, does this have to be dead people?
No.
Oh, well, there's certainly people alive that I would not trust to recommend wine, but something tells me that St. Ignatius would not be my guy. I love his teaching. I love his practices. I'm all about it. And it might just have been some of his, I don't know. He was injured, and there was other things about his story. I don't think that I would have trusted him to pick out something for me. So there's something funny about that. I wish I had a little bit more. That's just a gut. St. Ignatius is probably not going to be my guy to recommend wine to me.
I think those are two unique picks to the question. I like that. Very good. What is something you used to believe that it turned out later you were wrong about?
Ooh. Well, there's a lot of those things. One specifically is the idea that, and I grew up in a very nondescript background. Christian background, Protestant background. I will tell you, I have no idea what denomination the church was that my mom dragged me to go to. But when you start to kind of feel like you're inheriting certain kind of beliefs, the concept of hell, the way I probably thought about it early on in my teens, late teens, early 20s, that's as early as my faith kind of started to form around. So my understanding of hell has changed a lot, probably in the last 25 to 30 years. And I've done some research on that because I have to. But I believe I've seen so much hell in our society and it's of our own doing. It's of our own making. And my love and understanding of God as creator has changed so much to where that's probably what I start and stop with. The idea of me changing and morphing with the idea of hell is with the love of God. St. John's of the Cross says that God insists on only being known by love. And if that's the case, then a God of wrath and anger to create us only to possibly watch us burn is a strange and twisted understanding of our Creator and our communion. So that's definitely one of the big ones.
It's amazing how we can make something feel normal that logically, when you unpack it, you go, this is anything but normal.
Mm-hmm.
But if enough people believe it and talk about it and, this is the thing. And that's one a lot of people can relate with of, hey, I grew up with this, but when I started poking at it, it doesn't look like Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you see as the main issue facing Christianity in the U.S. today? Take your pick.
Yeah. That's a dartboard that's going to hit anything if you just throw something. I really do believe this. I see this because the research that I do when I'm on Threads is research to me. I don't do anything but Instagram and Threads. And I do Threads for research. And it's been extraordinary, some of the findings. We have watched an entire generation of people walk away from the church because of hypocrisy. So your churches start to empty, and certain churches are going to feel that before others. But people are walking away because they're not leaving Jesus. They're not leaving their faith in God. It just looks really different, but they aren't going to give money and presence and time and resources to a institution that is harming their peers, their friends, or themselves.
Yeah.
So we have to figure that out.
What is something blowing your mind right now that you're learning? Maybe from Threads.
No, it's not that. It would be the cosmos. I love space and I love quantum physics and all of these things. And I am the idea that light is still expanding the universe is beyond us. That creation is still happening. It is infinite. It is ever expanding. And so that literally is continuing to blow my mind. And gosh, and why wouldn't it?
The thing that blows my mind about space is that the majority of space is what we refer to as dark matter, and scientists don't know what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just like, What? We don't know what the majority of space is. Like,
good. Yeah.
I'm like, we can like feel pretty smart about a lot of things, and then you go, yeah, that's the majority of it. We call it dark matter. We don't really know what it is.
I love that mystery, and I just take solace in that sometimes too. It's just like, I don't know, we don't know, they don't know. The most brilliant minds on the planet, alive or dead, still don't know, and that's okay.
That's crazy to me.
Cool.
Like the amount of things we do know and that we can do, and you're like, yeah, we don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know that. Oh, it's so good.
That's so good. What's something you're excited about right now?
Well, it's not baseball season, and we're only a week in. But I'm excited about some of the learning I believe I had ahead of myself, as well as watching people lean into conversations together, like safely. We just did a book study through Lent where 17, 18 of us got together, and we have friends that have an Irish pub in downtown, and they gave us a key where we do a mission there on Sunday evenings, but they let us come in on Wednesday mornings to do this book study. And I left every one of those with just like, gosh, this gives me so much hope. I'm looking forward to like the next conversation. And one of my favorite things is like I did with this book, I wanted to provide threads. Like, here's a thread, pull it, see where it goes. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. I just love to listen and watch and learn from being with people, and I'm an introvert. So this really says something of like spending time with people and learning like what makes them tick, but also learning from their, if they're vulnerable enough to share their pain, when they hear something like, oh my gosh, this gives me hope. Gosh, I'm looking forward to that. I get to do that. That's one of the parts of my job that I get to do. And so I'm always looking forward to that.
As a fellow introvert, I would tell you that is an indicator to me that you are very healthy in your personal time, because you have figured out how to meet your own needs to be what you need to be. So then you are able to fully embrace, because, there's seasons of my life where I'm like, I don't want to be around anybody at all. And it's like, it's because I'm unhealthy, right? Sure. There's other seasons where it's like, no, I'm really enjoying being with people. It's because I'm taking care of myself and, doing all that. The other question I have, are you drinking on Wednesday mornings?
No.
So you're at an Irish pub?
Just coffee.
Wow.
Yeah.
Does the pub serve coffee?
They allow us to make it.
Oh.
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Because you said the Irish pub, and I was all on board, and then you said Wednesday morning, and I'm like, okay.
That's the only time that we could do that.
That's a curveball.
So, I know. Yeah, we visit that pub quite frequently enough, so they have a wonderful happy hour, and it's definitely one of those joints when you walk in, somebody, like numerous people, and it's never get in and get out. You're there to just be a part of the group. And about 6:30 or 7 o'clock every night that I have been there, that's my cue to leave, because it gets so loud. It's a very small place, and it's just brick, and it's just like, it's chaos. And that's usually okay, I'm done here. And, but man, it's so much fun. And it's just a staple in our little downtown USA kind of main street.
That's beautiful. All right. Is there anything I have not asked you that you feel like you got to get in before we close this episode, or otherwise it would be an injustice?
No, Jeremy, I really enjoyed this. I think I'm looking forward to reading your book, and I'm looking forward to maybe even going back through some of the other guests you've had on here. I think the type of mindfulness that you have and the space that you provide is great. And so I've enjoyed it. And I can't say that about all of those. So, it's great, man. This has been great.
Well, thank you so much. Well, hey, if someone's resonating with you, they're like, I like this guy. What's the easiest way? You've said a couple social media. What's the easiest way for them to find you online and connect with what you're doing?
Yeah, just find Instagram or Threads. ChadJarnagin.com is my website, but it takes you to all that stuff. But that's just information stuff. If you want to connect and stuff, it would be Instagram probably.
Well, Chad, I have thoroughly enjoyed officially meeting you. We have interacted. We have known of each other for a while. I'm glad we've closed the loop. We've completed the circle, and you are absolutely a delight. I love the way you're doing ministry. I love your heart. I thoroughly enjoyed your book, and I'm excited for more people to be exposed to these ideas, to resonate the inward and the outward, and to figure out how do we be in congruence of all of this. So thank you for the work that you're doing and the way that you're being faithful despite it not being a gigantic crowd. I love that. And thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's been great. This is the first episode of Jarnagin and Jarnagin.
That's right, dear listener. You were here on episode 1 of Jarnagin and Jarnagin, or however we call it. Hey, this was a blast. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you on the next episode of Cabernet and Pray. Thanks, friends.